I don't like Yuji's Awakening. What do I mean by this? Well, throughout the entire series of Jujutsu Kaisen, we see Yuji having to struggle through most of his battles by the skin of his teeth and getting significantly stronger in a short period of time. I mean, just look at the Goodwill event. You can very easily make the claim that Yuji is the strongest Jujutsu Tech student by the end of the fight with Hanami. However, the thing that kept Yuji grounded to me in this power system filled with imaginary mass, space distortion, slashes that can bisect the world, the thing with Yuji was he didn't have any of that. He is what the fandom describes as a standard punch and kick merchant, which isn't all that rare, but he still makes it look cool. A character whose main plan of attack is to simply aim for a clean left right good night is fun to watch. Yes, Yuji pretty much gains the ability to black flash relatively consistently when needed, but that still doesn't change how simple a character he was in regards to the power system. He didn't have 2 curse techniques, he didn't even have 1. He lacked the ability to use reverse curse technique to heal from significant damage. He didn't even have an anti-domain technique like Hollow Wicker Basket or a simple domain, and he of course didn't have a domain expansion. However, that all changed over the course of a single arc. The Shinjuku Showdown is nothing like Shibuya. The Shinjuku Showdown and the Shibuya incident are like the Greed Island and Chimera Ant arc from Hunter x Hunter. One is almost universally praised as a fantastic arc with constant overlapping moving pieces that come together for an awesome conclusion. The other is a mixed bag that leaves a lot to be desired. The Shinjuku Showdown and Greed Island, of course, being the less praised arcs of the 2 series. I personally feel that there are a lot of reasons for this. Specifically for JJK, the Sukuna Gauntlet to some has been dragging for a while, as well as the lack of clarity regarding what the hell Uraume and Hikari have been doing. On top of the lack of mentions of the merger, there are quite a few things about the Shinjuku Showdown to not be a fan of. To lower the scope a bit, and keep the main focus on Yuji, let's talk about how much Yuji gained off screen over the course of this single arc that I personally feel was too much, too quickly. Yuji eats the remaining Cursed Womb death paintings and gains access to blood manipulation, and then is trained by Choso and Kamo to attempt to get a grasp on it before the battle starts. Whilst he struggles with convergence, he still gets access to this cursed technique off screen. Yuji does body switch training with Kusakabe to gain access to the new Shadow Style Simple Domain from his body's muscle memory, allowing him to access and use the Simple Domain just from Kusakabe's tutelage. Yuji also learns Reverse Curse Technique, or RCT, somewhere before the Shinjuku Showdown, but it's not really expanded upon how or when he got access to it, so people seem to just think he gained RCT during the scuffle with Megane before Shinjuku. No, he didn't. I mean, Sukuna states himself that in the month between him taking control of Megami and Shinjuku, Yuji learned RCT. We have no idea when he learned it, he just did it in a month, somehow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then, over the course of the battle with Sukuna, Yuji manages to land more Black Flashes than any other character in the series, and unlocks a second curse technique, Shrine. Whilst this was foreshadowed ages ago, just after Yuji's initial death to Sukuna, it still feels weird that over the course of this fight, he has joined the Double CT Club. However, it doesn't stop there. After using Shrine, and in turn Yuji's version of Dismantle against Sukuna, as well as landing another Black Flash, he seemingly gets used to this technique enough to imbue it into a barrier to gain access to a domain expansion. Go through this again with me, slower. Over the course of a single arc, Yuji has gained access to every single facet of the Jujutsu Kaisen Cursed Energy Power System. Let's go through this one by one. He has 2 Curse Techniques, he can use Reverse Curse Technique, he has an Anti-Domain Technique, and he can cast a Domain Expansion as well, on top of landing the most Black Flashes in the entire series. The reason this annoys me is the way each facet of the Cursed Energy Power System is shown through other characters, and in turn their levels of power. I mean, who else in the series has 2 Curse Techniques? Kenjaku, Yuta, and Sukuna, pretty much. Those characters are either born with the ability to use 2, like Yuta, or they're literally hundreds of years old and have other methods of using 2 curse techniques. Kusakabe and Miwa spend their entire lives learning the new Shadow Style, and it's something stated that Gojo can do but can't simply teach. Yuji gets it off screen. Within the span of 40 chapters in a series where Yuji has nothing besides the ability to Black Flash for the past 220 chapters, Yuji checks literally every box on the list for the JJK power system. There is literally nothing more Yuji can learn to get stronger besides improving his current arsenal. He literally gets everything. That in of itself isn't terrible, okay, don't get me wrong. Spoilers for Bleach and Naruto. Skip to here if you don't want to hear them. I love Naruto, I love Bleach. By the end of the series, each of the main characters have everything. Naruto has access to every single nature transformation, and Ichigo has had literally every ability in the series from Shikigami, Espada, Quincy, and Fullbring. He's literally had access to everything, but the difference with those, more so Bleach than Naruto because Naruto gets it in a similarly annoying way to Yuji, Ichigo gains and loses access to these over time. Over the course of around 700 chapters, Ichigo gets access to it all, whereas Yuji gets access to everything over the course of like 40. And even more so in Ichigo's case, he loses access to certain powers like the Fullbring and some of his hollow powers over time. This is where the spoilers end. You can click, yeah, you're fine now. Yuji off-screen unlocks a CT, as well as RCT, an anti-domain technique, then proceeds to learn another CT on top, and then just do a domain expansion immediately after, like it's nobody's business. The reason I feel a lot of people disagree with this opinion vehemently is due to how Yuji is portrayed as a character, constantly struggling and being put through the emotional ringer in every arc, not being allowed more than a single moment of respite. He's an underdog that is constantly getting crushed by the sorcerer world, so seeing him finally being a real part of the power system through unlocking all these abilities is satisfying initially. But if you take a step back, at least to me, it's too much too quickly. Well then, how would you change this? This is a big problem to me, but how would I attempt to fix it, right? There are plenty of ways you can kind of ease Yuji's growth into this power system earlier in the series instead of just forcing him to get everything super fast. For example, Mechamaru was a character who was able to learn the simple domain simply through seeing it used by Miwa. Granted, it was probably over time and not from a single use, but still, Yuji also saw Miwa use it during the Goodwill event, and you can argue he may have also saw Todo use it as well. Granted, not for long, but he never questioned or asked about what it was. I mean, the narrator states that Todo was taught the simple domain by Yuki. Yuji meets Yuki before the Culling Games. He could have learned it during the Perfect Prep arc, just after the Akari stuff pretty much. Or he could have at least mentioned Todo after his quote-unquote death to Yuki, but that's a different issue. What I'm saying is to prevent Yuji having to unlock access to barriers in the simple domain from Kusakabe, could have had Yuji learn them from Yuki, then have him improve them with Kusakabe, and that in turn makes it feel more earned for Yuji to not only survive a Malevolent Shrine with a simple domain he just learned, but it also makes more sense for Yuji to unlock his domain expansion in this way, since his barrier techniques would have also been improved over time, instead of learning them once, then instantly knowing how to do a domain after a few black flashes. Well, what about RCT? With RCT, just have it so he learns it during the scuff with Megana. A lot of people think he learned it there anyways, and it matches with the other moments we see of a character being forced to learn it to survive a fatal attack, e.g. Gojo and Toji. Just have Yuji to be significantly damaged during the fight with Sukuna, have him learn RCT lying on the ground while Maki fights Sukuna. Yuji gets back up and decks Sukuna. Easy money. Just have a flashback to a character like Yuta or Gojo, mentioning how it works to Yuji like how we saw with Gojo and Shoko. Now the curse techniques themselves. With blood manipulation, you could slowly build up to it more. Just look at the conversation between Yuji and Choso, where Choso asks if Yuji's father had stitches on his head. Go on from there. Have Choso being overprotective after his other brother's deaths, and have him think it's possible for Yuji to unlock blood manipulation. I mean, don't get me wrong, Choso isn't exactly a genius, but if you look at the commentary during the Shinjuku Showdown, he is clearly far from uneducated when it comes to the world of sorcery, okay? Maybe he thinks about the plan of having Yuji eat Sukuna fingers and then links that to eating the rest of the Cursed Room death paintings. I mean, there are over 100 chapters to flesh out this idea. You could have Choso mention these thoughts during the fight with Kenjaku. There are a few places you could have this internal dialogue of Choso wanting to make Yuji stronger so he doesn't die, and in turn, him figuring out the possibility of him learning blood manipulation. Now with Shrine, if it was on its own, unlocked during a Black Flash barrage, and then over the course of the fight, Yuji uses this new curse technique to unlock his domain expansion, sure, I can get with that. Maybe if you don't like it, you could have him unlock it after landing the Black Flash against Mahito. I feel like thematically that would make sense, given Mahito's link to the soul with Idol Transfiguration and how Yuji uses it against Sukuna. So having Yuji unlock that through Black Flashes earlier would be fine. However, if it remained in the same place in the plot and wasn't accompanied by other abilities in the series, I feel like it would be easier to digest than him getting everything at once, like as it is now. Overall, Yuji's progression isn't bad. It's not great, at least until the Shinjuku Showdown, in my opinion. His awakening, on top of the off-screen buffs, could have been better, in my opinion, by having a more of a slow build-up over time, by having Yuji slowly gain more and more pieces and aspects from the cursed energy system, like RCT, like anti-domain techniques, etc. That would be preferable to me, more so than what we're seeing now, where Yuji is getting every aspect of the power system when he spent around 220 chapters, or around 85% of the series, without any real abilities besides his ability to Black Flash, and in the home stretch, in the last 15%, he gets all these checkboxes like it's nothing. And on the flip side, yes, it's not as simple as Yuji just getting all these abilities, I will agree to that. He did have to hit like 7 or 8 Black Flashes in Shinjuku, he had to eat the Cursed Room death paintings, he had to switch bodies with the goat Kusakabe, but most of this is off screen, and is, as I've stated, too quick. in my opinion, feeling a little contrived in hindsight. Granted, Yuji's power growth is nowhere near as contrived as the existence of Hana and Angel, but that is a topic for another day. With that being said, how do you feel about Yuji's awakening? Do you think he accrued power too quickly like I did, or do you prefer him getting these abilities exclusively at the end of the series? Please let me know what you think below. But with that being said, toodles my doodles, hopefully see you in the next one. Peace.